humans. You're using dehumanizing language saying, oh, it's an embryo. No, that's a baby.
So for a long time, I've called out the far left because they project. This is an example of the far right that projects, okay? So first of all, understand this about Charlie Kirk. His agenda is national abortion ban. He doesn't like women. He makes it, if you watch enough of his campus, any chance he can get to be dehumanizing to women, he will be. I mean, to say that it's dehumanizing, to call it an embryo because he believes it's a human life. I mean, that's what the science says, and he places the science before what God's word says. Because again, God's word says all over the Bible, undeniable, no denying it. A ton of your churches didn't want to tell you or bring your attention to it because this agenda is sinister. It really is. It's not me advocating for abortion. It's just that you're not murdering anything when God doesn't see it as a life yet. I mean, God says he knows you from the dust of the earth, but you're not a life then. So what makes Charlie Kirk just hypocritical, and this is the danger when because he's only 30, okay, and yet he tries to play like he's some strong man. No, I've worked with men his age that are far more outstanding, men and gentlemen. This isn't an example of male, the type of male that women think represents what's missing in the male masculinity stuff. This is an example of a man that just has issue with women. Yeah, which is why he runs around the country and he says abortion is murder. Okay, so think about all the trafficked women, because there's tons of articles, you can look them up yourself, about how trafficking and abortion is linked. Okay, whether it's forced or not. Now the far right, in order to push their narrative and be dehumanizing towards women, they have to say that only 1% of abortions are from rape victims. That's absolutely not true. That you can't even say that because, again, 63 to 69% of people don't even report the rape. So it's way higher. So he's dehumanizing all those people that have already been victimized. Believe me, God knows that. God sees it. Yeah, God, I'm older and wiser than Charlie. God will knock him off his little pedestal, okay? But this is all a narrative by the far right. This is why the far left gets the ideas of the Handmaid's Tale. That's where it comes from. Because I never would have thought that there's men still around like that. But then there was men created the feminist movement because it served men. Men funded it. Women didn't have rights, so they wanted, we'll give you rights, we'll let you go vote. But they wouldn't have been able to do any of that without men. So then that's why the feminist movement I never liked, because they exploited women. They always make women look trashy, okay? But really what it served was the government, because it was getting the women out to work, and then both, people in the home are working more tax dollars to the government. So, but Charlie Kirk hates the feminist movement. So do I. It's just he fails to say that men that were character types like him created it. I get he's in Trump's inner circle. I don't really care. Okay, I've worked with plenty of men his age, and I've never seen such nastiness. I mean, this is just beyond nasty. Okay, I mean, I've watched enough of these videos, okay? And yet, here's the thing that makes the Michael Knowles, Glenn Beck, and him hypocritical, all right, is because they use science as their argument for when life begins. So just realize that. For those of you that are legit Christians like me, that really believe in what God says, I mean, I'm not trying to say that the science is all bad, but when it comes, they always seem to want to go against whatever God's word is. So science says that life begins at fertilization, but God says life begins when you can breathe, when he blows breath into your nostrils. But it's all over the Bible. You can go on my Rumble channel and find all the videos I've done the past few days. I'm exhausted from showing there's too many places to deny it. But that it didn't serve any of the Baptist or the evangelical or the Catholic or the Protestant churches to tell any of their Christian followers the truth about that. But here's where it's sinister, okay? Because if God doesn't see it as a life until he gives breath to it, which would be around or near the time of delivery, it's certainly, he doesn't see it that. Is it in the process of building it? Yes. But it's not a life yet, okay? So But what is sinister is that then this is a group of people that's so sinister that they wanted to get you to fight for what they say is life, except to God it's not a life yet. All the while that you're praying and focusing on that, and they have a ton of churches, that's their political activism, is national abortion bans, and all the while, though, child abuse goes unaddressed, trafficked victims never gets addressed, because I just did a video how it's not, their number one issue is abortion. Why? It has nothing to do with life. It has to do with control. And even that's why I say it's even more sinister, because based on the Bible, God does not see that as a life yet. So then it takes a bunch of Christians down the wrong road, because God never talked about abortion. Jesus' teachings make it clear that what he wanted you to focus on was the life, the living, which is why these far-right radicals have turned this into, it's a baby at conception. I mean, I could see Charlie Kirk going as far as, it's, back to the dust of the earth. But then again, he only uses the Bible when it serves him. So he's not a legit Christian. He's just not. I mean, any Christian, when it comes to the life issue, that's going to place what science says above what God says, well, it's not really a good idea, especially when it comes to life. Jesus' teachings and actions emphasize the value and dignity of children, but these references are to the already born children, Mark 9:36-37. And I think most people know this, but Jesus does not directly address or explicitly advocate for the unborn. Doesn't. In any of the gospel accounts, there are no recorded statements from Jesus specifically about unborn children or abortion. Yet Charlie Kirk runs around and says abortion is murder. Okay, well, there are spontaneous abortions, which means that's like an act of God. So he's calling God a murderer, I guess. But he just uses God when he feels like it. So this is the danger. Like, legit Christians should be able to see who he is. But this is how false all of it is. I mean, Jesus said they're all deceiving you. So, and when you look on the websites of these major Christian churches, this is their big political activism, and they've been at it for a long time, no different than the left was at it for a long time to move, go further out with when abortion, could be at the end and even past post-birth, So the radicals are the problem. Okay, I mean, to say that it's dehumanizing, to say it's an embryo, I mean, he's just such a walking hypocrisy, because he literally uses the science to say when life begins, disregarding the Bible, okay, but then wants to say that the science, who says it's an embryo, that's dehumanizing. No, he dehumanizes. He dehumanizes every woman that's been trafficked, every rape victim. He dehumanizes all the children because he disregards all those lives. That's how little these people care about life. That's what a game it is. That's why it's such a game, and that's the reason Donald Trump has said, we need to move on from this. I don't think they will, though, because it's the radical right. So even though it's not at the federal level anymore, and they're happy about that, they still want that ban. So he goes on all these college campuses, and this girl in this clip, I actually agree with most of what she says. She's not one of the crazy ones that get up there and acts, nuts. But she's saying it's not a human life. It's not even a human life to God. So if it's not a human life to God, then you're a Christian and you're just going to go by what the science says, then how do you think God's going to see that? You think he's just going to be like, oh, well, I can understand. No, he'd be like, I told you to listen to me. But a bunch of Christians in this country, because these churches have been used as political organizations, they're really not about Jesus' word. They're not. They're not. I'm sorry to say that, but they're not. I just did the video showing how all of your major Christian religions place abortion, which abortion they say is murder. That's why they say it's a Holocaust. No, it's not a Holocaust, because it's not murder. It has to be a life to murder it. And God said when life begins, you have to be able to breathe. You have to have lung. That's how he created everything. Everything, in order for it to function, breath is essential for life. So he's a liar. But he is just a political hack. And this is part of this is the far right problem we have. So please recognize it if you're a Christian.